Om Ajnanam Timmirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksururmilidam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Vasudevasutam Devam Kansa Chanuramardanam Devaki Param Anandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Jai Sri Krishna, Jai Gurudev. Thank you once again for joining this session. It's going to be a lovely session. I'm going to talk about four things. What is Bhakti? How is Bhakti yoga different from Jnana yoga? What are the different stages that a bhakta, a devotee, goes through? And most importantly, what are the qualities that are most dear to Lord Krishna, that he wants to see in his devotees? So these are the four things we'll be covering today. It's going to be a wonderful session, and I'll be very happy to take questions at the end of the session. All right, so let's see how we progress by looking at the slides. So we have to first and foremost be clear that the whole Bhagavad Gita, as it is, really is based on 18 chapters. The first 6 chapters focuses on karma. How karma leads to bhakti. The last 6 chapters talks about jnana, how knowledge leads to bhakti. And the middle 6 chapters focuses on bhakti itself. So that's a lot of focus on bhakti. The entire Bhagavad Gita is focusing on the keyword of bhakti. But if we look at it from the context of the yoga ladder of ascension, how we promote, we move up from the animal life, where we are interested in satisfying material desires, to the human life, karma kanda, and from karma kanda, we start with the first step, karma yoga, where you accept a transcendental goal, and that is the starting point of ascension. From karma yoga, from action, we gain knowledge, and that is jnana yoga. And from jnana yoga, we then focus, we meditate on the Supreme Lord, that is Ashtanga yoga. So karma yoga leads to jnana yoga, to Ashtanga yoga, and from Ashtanga yoga, there is what is called Brahman realization. You realize the Brahman within you. You realize the Paramatma within you. And from Paramatma realization, they go to Bhakti yoga. And from Bhakti yoga, there is Bhagwan realization. So this realization goes in steps. And you notice Bhakti yoga is that which is needed to achieve Bhagwan realization. And this realization occurs when we are seeking liberation beyond the modes of material nature. As long as you're within the modes of material nature, you're controlled by the tamasic nature, the rajasic nature, the sattvic nature, you reach up to the Ashtanga yoga session. So now it's very interesting. Bhakti yoga is the highest yoga that one can achieve. And if we try to understand this word, what is bhakti? It is actually coming from the root word bhaj, which means to be attached to God. Now let us understand the context. Initially, we must be clear about the meaning of love. What is love? Love is desire and sacrifice. You cannot love someone if you don't sacrifice for that someone. The father loves a child, he sacrificed for the child, desires to see the child grow up. So sacrifice is required for love to manifest. And this sacrifice and desire, that is love, is actually meant and directed towards people, even animals, a certain place or an object. So this is at the material plane. So that love we talk about, which is directed towards person, animal, object, is fundamentally when it is occurring within the modes of material nature. But when we Combine love with surrender. We love and surrender. That is bhakti, which means we are surrendering, we are offering our bhakti, our devotion towards God. So bhakti has been defined as devotional service, service in the mood of surrender. And unless there is surrender, there cannot be bhakti. The degree of surrender and love indicates the level of bhakti. So we have to understand that bhakti is love for love's sake. There is no selfish expectation, no fear, but pure love. But this is the level that the entire Bhagavad Gita is focused on, how to be engaged in bhakti. Now, this word God, what is God? We keep referring to this in the context of Bhagwan. Sometimes you hear the word Bhagwan, sometimes you hear the word Paramatma, sometimes you hear the word Brahman. Now, what is the difference? Why is that there is a Bhagwan, there is a Paramatma, Brahman? What is the difference between the three? When you look at this picture, you can see the sun, the sunshine, and reflection of the sun. The sunshine is compared to Brahman, which is not different from the sun. The sunshine and the sun are the same thing, but that is the Brahman. Both are heat and light, yet the sun, where the sunshine comes from, that is Bhagwan, which retains its form and identity as the source of everything. So we have the sun and the sunshine. Without the sun, there can be no sunshine. Similarly, without Bhagwan, Brahman cannot exist. The same sun may be reflected upon the ponds or numerous pots of water. In this way, the same God is reflected within the hearts of all living entities as Param Atma or Super Soul. So when we say Param Atma, we are saying the Atma that is superior, Param, that exists in the hearts of every living entity. It's like a reflection of a Bhagwan within the heart. So we can say Brahman and Paramatma are partial, but Bhagavan is complete realization of supreme truth. So this gives us a better understanding of the difference between the three. And to go a bit deeper, we can say Brahman is energy, Paramatma is localized focus, that means directed as a reflection in the heart of the people, whereas Bhagwan is the personality of Godhead. And from scriptures, we come to understand that Brahman is the beginning of transcendental realization. The beginning is to connect with that energy, the divine energy that exists. And if that realization is connected with some degree of bhakti, then Paramatma, super soul realization takes place. That is the middle and second stage in transcendental realization. The supreme personality of Godhead is the ultimate realization of the absolute truth. So this means that bhakti is focused on trying to achieve and realize the supreme personality of Godhead, which is Bhagavan. Now, in this chapter, in chapter 12, there are three main parts that we'll be covering. The first part is related to how bhakti is superior to impersonalism. Bhakti is personalized form of the Lord. How is that superior? Second part, we'll talk of the progressive stages of devotion. What are the different steps we can take? And the final part is the qualities which endear one to Krishna. All right. So let's start with the first part. Now that we've understood what is bhakti and how is bhakti superior to imperialism is something that we have to be clear about. Now, first things first. There are two types of transcendentalists, a bhakti yogi and a jnana yogi. A bhakti yogi meditates on the form of the deity of Lord Krishna. And by doing that, he realizes the blissful portion of the soul. Whereas the jnana yogi meditates on the formless, does not think of form, and does that to realize the eternal a knowledgeable aspect of the soul. So the soul has got an eternal aspect and a knowledgeable aspect. That's why we say Sat Chit Ananda. So they are looking for the Sat and Chit. Jnana yogis are looking for Sat and Chit. The Bhakti yogis or the Bhaktas are more concerned about the bliss, the Ananda portion of the soul. So the Gita differentiates among impersonalists. It declares that those who are impersonalists, but they minimize Krishna's form as material. When they say Krishna is just material, it's just like one of us, they are called Mayavadis. These people are deluded and ill-fated. In contrast, indicates those impersonalists who simply seek the impersonal absolute without condemning the personal form are Brahmavadis. And Brahmavadis eventually attain the desire, but only after a lot of labor. Now, we have personalists who look and pray towards the personal form of the Lord, and impersonalists who believe in meditating on the formless. Now, personalists are always thinking of the Lord in his personal form, Krishna, whereas impersonalists are focusing on the impersonal Brahman form. So one is personal form, one is impersonal form. Personal form is focused by personalists, and impersonal form focused by impersonalists. The beginning of this chapter, Arjuna asks Krishna, who is better devotee, a personalist or impersonalist? When this question was asked, Lord Krishna replied that those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be perfect. That is his answer. Great and transcendental faith, they are perfect. The word that he used is yukta tamaha, most perfect in yoga. And why did he say yukta tamaha? Krishna answers that the devotees are the most perfect. He used the superlative yukta tamo. Yukta is a variant of the word yoga. Yukta refers to engage in yoga. Whoever engage in yoga is yukta. Yukta tara is comparative. It's like better. But yukta tamo is superlative. It is the best. So we are clear that those who worship the personal form of the Lord, according to the Lord, are the most perfect in yoga. The more we become attracted to his form, the less worldly forms can infatuate us. And because Krishna's form is eternal and eternally attractive, when we become attached to him, we can, by meditating on him, relish the supreme love that is eternal and eternally fulfilling. Now, the other point Lord Krishna made to Arjuna is that for those whose minds are attracted to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So the key word is, yes, you can go ahead and seek me in the impersonal form, but it is very troublesome. It's very difficult for people who have a body because the mind is very difficult to control. So that is the verdict Lord Krishna gave to Arjuna. So to summarize, Lord Krishna says, the pure devotees are most perfect, especially those who think of him in the personal form. And the path of impersonal Brahman is most troublesome. He didn't say it is not possible. He says it is possible. It's very, very troublesome. So Bhakti comparatively is simple and easy path of personalists. Ananya Bhaktas. Ananya means Bhaktas who are totally devoted without any distraction, unalloyed devotion. So the ultimate consideration or conclusion from these verses is that pure bhakti is the highest process for realization of the absolute truth. So this question was answered very nicely. Now, again, we have to go a little bit deeper and understand the stages. We understand that first and foremost, without bhakti to the Lord, the worshippers of the impersonal Brahman obtain only suffering, not Brahman. Because they have no bhakti, they suffer, they put the body through so much of torment, they don't get anything. But when there is some degree of bhakti in their meditation, when they start meditating in his form, then the worshippers of impersonal Brahman obtain the goal of realizing Brahman. Because Brahman is his energy, just like the sun and the sunlight. The sunlight cannot exist without the sun, and Brahman is the sunlight of who? Of the Lord, which is Bhagavan. So both the impersonalists endure immense physical suffering of the body, but at least with bhakti, they reach Brahman. Now, when you talk about bhaktas, they also endure difficulty in what? Controlling the senses and engaging in various disciplines of bhakti. So there are many, many disciplines, many, many stages and steps. It's very difficult. It is not easy. But because of the appearance of Krishna's blissful form, they do not experience suffering. So that is the fundamental difference between the two. What Krishna says, those who fully worship the unmanifested, that is, lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed, and immovable, the impersonal conception of absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engage in the welfare of all at last achievement. So you can see very clearly that the issue here is not a question of just fixing the mind on the impersonal. You also have to sarva bhuta hitirataha, be concerned for the welfare of all living beings, engaged in that process, control the senses, equally disposed to everyone. Because the impersonalists seeking the all-pervading spirit Brahman strive for the welfare of all beings, sarva bhutai tirata, because they need to be benevolent, because the spiritual path requires them to see Brahman everywhere. So when they see Brahman everywhere, they feel very sense of benevolence to everybody. But when you talk about devotees who are having that bhakti in them, they also are benevolent to others in three significant ways. Number one, bhaktas or devotees are not just, they see others as not just particles of spirit, but are parts of Krishna. All living beings are children of Krishna, and we are members of the same family. So that's the first point why people who engage in bhakti have a sense of benevolence. Number two, reality towards which we guide others is much sweeter and far more attractive than passive peace of Brahman realization. That ultimate reality is the dynamic spiritual world permeated with ecstatic love for Krishna. And number three, for progressing spiritually, others don't have to depend only on their own discrimination and determination. By rendering devotional service to Krishna, they get his grace in the form of higher wisdom and higher taste. Both these make it easier to go from illusion to reality. So having such a rich spiritual vision, devotees are naturally benevolent towards everyone. In fact, Bhagavad Gita 12:13 recommends such benevolence as the first among characteristics of devotees. So bottom line is, by focusing on the personal form, it becomes easier to reach the Lord. So when the focus is primarily on the impersonal feature, Lord Krishna says, Klesho dikha taras tesam. Klesha means trouble. Adikhara, very much tesam of them. It's very, very troublesome. It's very difficult. It's like pushing a rock up a hill. The more higher you push the rock, the more heavier it gets. It's very difficult because an impersonalist has many requirements. He has to be uttering Om, correct timing of death. Consciousness has to be fully purified. He has to be celibate, renunciate of all attachment, knowledge of Vedas. There's so many qualifications, but all this is not required for a pure devotee who only has to develop prema bhakti. So fundamentally, when we go on the process of devotional service, Lord Krishna says, those who worship me, giving up the activities to me and being devoted to me without deviation, engage in devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, I am the swift deliverer from ocean of birth and death. So he comes down and actually helps the person go up. So it's just like when you're pushing a rock up and somebody is helping you pull the rock upwards, and this becomes so much easier. So this is just a illustration that I put together to help us understand the power and the benefit of Bhakti Yoga and why it is easier due to the grace of Lord Krishna. So this is the fundamental difference. Bhakti Yoga, full protection and self-deliverance from personal Godhead, as per the verse we just mentioned. Whereas when we meditate on the formulas, no reciprocation from impersonal feature. So that is a very important difference. So what Lord Krishna said, just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Then you will live in me always without a doubt. Now, this is a very powerful verse. It's like describing a child, a baby in a cot. You know, the baby is looking at a father. So tall, so big, so high. Wants to touch the face of the tall father, is towering above her. All she has to do is stretch her hand out to indicate a desire to be lifted by him. What does the father do? He will bend down and pick her up in his arms, and she'll be able to touch his face. Similarly, as living entities, there must be a desire and attempt to reach out. We can't on our own, definitely not. Just like the baby cannot touch the face of the father. But if the baby raises the hand, indicates the desire, the show of bhakti, attempt to reach out, Lord Krishna, just like the father, will raise the child up to give us a chance to reach out to him. So I think this is a very poignant message that we should take very seriously when he says, you will live in me always without a doubt. But what we have to do is to fix the mind and engage all intelligence in it. So there are three very nice verses that are linked to one another. Text 8 says, just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage your intelligence in me, you will live in me. The next very verse says, my dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, desire to attain me. So it's very understanding. And he says, if you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. Because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So when we take these three verses together, what it conveys is that first thing is live for Krishna. The verse first quarter urges fixing the mind of Krishna, as the mind is the reservoir of desires. This recommendation essentially means making Krishna the central object of our desires. Living to desire him and desire the things of this world for his service. That is nothing but living for Krishna. That's the highest level. The second verse quarter urges fixing the intelligence on Krishna. This implies that we use our intelligence to assimilate his message and thus see everything through a Krishna-centered worldview. Thereby we live through Krishna. That is, we go through life with Krishna's message and the interpretive framework of making sense of life for growing devotionally to lives where it happens. So, second one is live through Krishna. The third one is live in Krishna. The remaining verse assures us that those who fix their mind and intelligence on Krishna will undoubtedly live in him. Where our thoughts and desires are, That's where we are essentially. So these three verses means live for Krishna, live through Krishna, and live in Krishna. Then Lord Krishna talks about the progressive stages of devotion. How bhakti can be practiced at multiple levels. Now, not everybody has that level of intelligence or the ability to control the mind and fix the mind. So everybody is now having an opportunity to show bhakti, and there are different stages. And then finally, it talks about the qualities of the bhakta that are dear to Krishna. So we have seen this before. We said that the first stage is karma yoga. You have to do the work, do your prescribed duties without seeking the fruit of results, sacrificing the duties for his benefit. And by doing the prescribed duties and sacrificing, you gain knowledge. That's jnana yoga. And from the jnana yoga that we achieve, we go to dhyana yoga, meditation. And from meditation, when we fix our mind on duty, with love, with a sense of emotional attachment, with a sense of surrender and love, that's bhakti yoga. That is what is needed. Now, I also mentioned earlier in chapter 2, verse 39, when Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, O Partha, as I revealed the Buddhi Yoga, or the yoga of the intellect, where you work with such understanding, you will be freed from bondage of karma. What is this Buddhi Yoga? It is like a car. Buddhi Yoga is like a car, which consists of the car itself. That's karma yoga. You have a car, karma yoga. But having a car alone is useless. It's not going to move without an engine. And the engine is the jnana yoga, the knowledge. So the car, yes, is needed. But without the engine, the car can't move. But the question is, where is the car going to move? That depends on the steering wheel. That is bhakti yoga. So if we have the car with an engine and we drive blindly anywhere, we will not get to our destination. But with proper bhakti, with proper controls, we can guide the car in a path to reach our destination. So bhakti yoga is the steering wheel that steers our focus and attention towards Lord Krishna by offering devotional service. And all these three, bhakti yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, are required in the totality in the context of buddhi yoga. So in the scriptures, there are 9 stages, 9 steps of increasing. First is called Shraddha. Shraddha means having belief, having faith in God. If there's no faith, then there's no issue of bhakti. Now, we all have faith. That's why we're sitting down here, we're listening to this talk. Then next stage is Sadhu Sangha, that is association with pure devotees. That association enhances the faith. From Sadhu Sangha, then we have Bhajana Kriya, performance of the prayers and the duties of a devotee, chanting, getting up early in the morning, doing Mangala Arati. And then we go on to talk about Ananya Nivritti, that means freedom from unwanted habits. All the unwanted habits will disappear as long as we engage in devotional service. And with that riddance of the unwanted habits, slowly the steadiness in practice comes in. That's called Nishta. And from Nishta, when the practice is steady after many, many years, then you receive Suchi. Suchi means higher taste. And higher taste will lead to asakti, attachment to devotional service. And from attachment to devotional service, we reach bhava. Bhava is experience of love of Godhead. And finally, prema, attain the pure love of Krishna. So it's a long process, but there is a directed, structured process. These are called the 9 stages of bhakti. Now, from the perspective of our life, we must realize that we go through an indirect lower stage to a higher stage. The first stage is to give up the results of work. The next stage is bhakti with external senses. And the highest stage is bhakti with internal senses. So giving up results of work is similar to karma yoga. Then we engage our external senses. to develop the desire to attain Krishna, follow the regular practices, sadhana bhakti, and live in relationship with Krishna. Then internal senses. So what is meant by bhakti with internal senses? What does that mean? Fix your mind exclusively on me by remembering me always. That is called smarana atmika bhakti. Smarana, remember, fix the mind. Fix the intelligence in me by contemplating on me based on scriptural description. That is manama atmika bhakti. Endeavor to fix your mind on me, abhyasa yoga. Abhyas means practice, by following the regular practice of bhakti. That is sadhana bhakti. And this is called abhyasa rupa bhakti. So we are talking about mind, we're talking about intelligence. And mind and intelligence are really internal senses that we have, part of the subtle body. So these types of bhakti are performed internally with the mind and intelligence. For people who are unable to restrain the mind and cannot even gradually fix the mind by practice, Lord Krishna says, never mind, you cannot engage with bhakti internal senses, then you have another way. Now, obviously, when you engage your mind intelligence and you dissolve the false ego, that is smarana atmika bhakti. That is what he has been even talking about in chapter 9, verse 34. Engage your mind, think of me, become my devotee, offer obeisance, worship to me. Being completely absorbed, you will come to me. Now, if we cannot engage internal senses, then we engage external senses. How is that? Work for Krishna. If you cannot perform sadhana bhakti, then just try to perform your activities for my pleasure. Mat karamo paramo bhava. Though your mind is not in me, as a result, you attain perfection. So when you work for Krishna, obviously, you do bhakti with internal, external senses are most outstanding. But if you are unable to even work for Krishna, then advises them to sacrifice the results of action, if not fully, partially. How? Give charity to build temples, charity to publish books, offer services to the Lord. You see, the Lord doesn't need temples and books to be published. He doesn't need money. He doesn't need our presence. He needs our presence. The fact that we donate, we sacrifice, we do things for him indicates that there is a desire to reach out to him. That's our presence. He wants that presence. He wants us to do what we can. If we cannot do 100% what he wants, at least do what we can. Work for Krishna. And this is some examples that we talk about. If you cannot even offer all your actions to me, then try to act by giving up the results of work and be self-situated. So results of work means don't be attached to the work. Whatever we do, do the best and do not get affected by the work. Do not think of it as something that you're looking forward to or something that you despise. Just say, okay, I'm doing my duty and that's it. And then by giving up that expectation of the result of work, either for it or against it, then peace of mind is achieved. That is so true. We are all so agitated in our mind because when we do something, we want somebody to say something nice. If somebody says something bad, somebody blames us, somebody this, somebody that. We get so agitated in our mind. There's never peace. Lord Krishna says, no, everything is fixed. Don't worry. Just do your work and get peace of mind. Because with peace of mind only, we can focus on Lord Krishna. So that is amazing. So to summarize, the first step, abhyas, practice. Practice and practice and practice. Practice what? Practice your prescribed duties without being affected by the results. That's karma. Second step, repetition of action. Do it again and again and again. When you keep doing it, it gives right to jnana, knowledge. You live in the presence of God is jnana. This knowledge is assimilated and directly perceived. So for instance, we get up early in the morning, we pray, we do our chanting, we do our Mangala Arati, we do it non-stop again and again and again. As we keep doing it and doing it and doing it, over time, we begin to gain more and more knowledge. And with that knowledge, we are slowly beginning to control the mind and focus it with a lot of effort until we reach the third step, dhyana, meditation. Dhyana means you are focusing the mind without effort. It just goes automatically, like a spacecraft being sucked into the planet because of the gravitational pull. So what you read in the scriptures or hear from realized master is directly perceived. That is through meditation, complete dissolution of the mind. So the mind becomes one with the soul. And finally, the fourth step is Shanti, peace, the highest stage of spiritual attainment. Peace, bliss, joy, nature of God himself. When you merge in God consciousness, you perceive inner peace, the great spiritual wealth, Shanti and Samadhi. That is the divine communion. So that is the four steps. So Lord Krishna then tells Arjuna, look, practice is the first thing you do, abhyas. But better than abhyas is knowledge, which you will acquire if you practice a lot. But even higher than knowledge is meditation, dhyana. Focus without interruption and effort. But even better than meditation is renunciation, is tyaga. So in verse 12, he says, if you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge is meditation. And better than meditation is renunciation of fruits of action. For such renunciation, one can achieve peace. So it's very lovely, you know, the Lord is so understanding. He knows that we cannot accommodate him. He says, okay, fine, I'll accommodate you. But you have to keep at it. And just when I said just now, I said that Bhakti Yoga is like the steering wheel of a car. I am on the steering wheel. I want to reach the Lord. How do I reach the Lord? I must have certain directions. Which direction to take? Do I take right? Do I take left? Do I go here? Do I go there? That directions that we have to follow are actually given by the Lord. He tells you what kind of character, what kind of nature you should develop to reach me. It's just like giving you directions. Do this, do this, do this, do that. So this directions, this nature, these characteristics of a devotee, which he describes, becomes the yardstick, the benchmark that we have to compare ourselves against. And if we keep reminding ourselves that these are the things I have to do, I have to be, and strive every single day to do it, then you're reaching towards him gradually, but surely you are reaching towards him. So what are these qualities? I will be covering these qualities as well as a summary of the key learning points with you next week. So I hope you join me next week to understand what is the, shall we say, secret recipe of gradually evolving our nature to a nature that is most dear to Krishna. If we love somebody very much, we also want that person to love us very much. Love is two ways. But if that person says, look, if you want me to love you, you have to do this, 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 then if we truly love that person, we will do those things. So that is what this is all about. So I hope you enjoyed this 40-minute session. I am going to stop here and I'm going to reserve the rest for next week. I hope that you too will try to share this message with your friends. You know, in the last chapter, we talked about Lord Krishna telling Arjuna, be my instrument. Nimitta, be my instrument. Just do the work for me. When you tell your friends about Bhagavad Gita, about Lord Krishna, about how amazing this whole journey is, you're actually being an instrument of the Lord. Because that's what he wants. And what better way we can lead our life than being an instrument of the Lord himself? We are so blessed. I'm blessed and you are blessed and we're all blessed to be here. And it's all his grace. It's because of his will. He wants you to be here. It is he who has made it possible for you to listen to me and made it possible for me to talk to you. And it is his blessings that we are all in this wonderful period together, sharing His glories. Now, a little bit of a sidetrack. If some of you are interested in doing an 8-week course in Bhagavad Gita, very structured course in Bhagavad Gita, all the 18 chapters, there is a session that's going to start on the 19th of June through Bhagavad Gita Academy, which I will give you the details on the WhatsApp. So please do take the initiative to consider it and send it around to your friends. But this session that I'm doing will continue as well, so that you have as many options as possible. So with that, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Anybody at this point in time? No? Okay, I hope you enjoyed the session. Look forward to seeing you next week. Jai Sri Krishna. Jai Gurudev.